Most people are not trapped by walls, rules, or circumstance. They are trapped by something far quieter, far more deceptive: comfort. They wake each morning, go through familiar motions, and convince themselves this is what life is supposed to be. They follow the same patterns, speak the same words, make the same choices, and call it stability. But beneath that surface of normalcy, something inside quietly aches. A whisper asks, "Is this it?" A question that never finds a voice because it feels dangerous to answer. The truth is, being stuck rarely looks dramatic. It doesn't always come with chaos or despair. Often it feels like calm predictability. The same routine that once felt safe now feels suffocating. It's the weight of unrealized potential pressing against the heart. A dull restlessness that never quite fades. Days begin to blur together. Years slip by unnoticed. And yet, people tell themselves they're fine because nothing is wrong, but nothing extraordinary is right either. This is the silent struggle of millions, the quiet resignation to a life smaller than what they once imagined. They used to dream boldly, but over time, those dreams were negotiated down to something more than realistic. They once believed they could build something meaningful, but then came the doubts, the comparisons, the subtle voice of fear that whispered, "Who do you think you are?" Slowly, ambition turns into obligation, purpose into survival, and passion into habit. The tragedy is not that people lack potential. It's that they stop believing in it. They learn to survive instead of striving to evolve. They become experts at tolerating dissatisfaction, numbing themselves with distractions, mistaking comfort for peace and motion for progress. They chase productivity, but lose direction. They appear successful, but feel hollow inside. Being stuck is not always about failure. Sometimes it's about being too good at maintaining what no longer fulfills you. You get comfortable inside a life that doesn't challenge you, a mindset that doesn't stretch you, an identity that no longer fits. Growth asks for discomfort, for risk, for courage. But comfort convinces you to stay still, and staying still too long becomes its own form of slow death. The most dangerous place a person can be is not at rock bottom, but in the middle, where things are fine. Because a fine doesn't demand change. To find sits asleep with your eyes open. A fine is where dreams quietly disappear without resistance. The world doesn't need more people who settle for fine. It needs people who wake up to the truth that being stuck is not fate. It's a choice, repeated daily in small decisions to play it safe. The question isn't whether you are capable of more. The question is, when will you stop pretending that comfort is enough? Most people don't stay still. They move constantly. They rush, they plan, they multitask. They check boxes off endless lists. From the outside, it looks like progress. It looks like ambition. It looks like growth. But beneath the surface, much of that motion leads nowhere. Because movement and progress are not the same thing. You can run at full speed and still be going in circles. This is the illusion that traps so many. The belief that business equals purpose. Every day becomes a race against the clock, a blur of tasks and obligations. The calendar is full, the phone never stops, and the mind never rests. Productivity becomes a drug, something that feels good but slowly empties you. You begin to mistake exhaustion for achievement, activity for advancement. You convince yourself that as long as you're moving, you must be moving forward. But motion without meaning is the slowest way to stay stuck. The danger lies in the comfort of illusion. Because if you're constantly busy, you never have to face the deeper questions. You don't have to ask why you're doing what you're doing. You don't have to confront the quiet fear that maybe your ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. You can distract yourself with the noise of progress, while your purpose quietly fades into the background. The truth is, many people work harder than ever before, but not towards anything that truly matters to them. They chase promotions they don't want, seek validation from people they don't respect, and measure their worth by numbers, titles, or possessions that never fill the void. They confuse external movement with internal growth. But progress is not about how much you do. It's about how aligned your actions are with your deeper vision. Real progress is subtle. It doesn't always look busy. It often begins in stillness, in reflection, in clarity, in the courage to pause and ask, is this the direction I truly want? Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stop running and start questioning, because direction always matters more than speed. If you're walking fast toward the wrong destination, every step takes you further away from yourself. But one step in the right direction, one act of alignment can change everything. Progress without purpose is motion wasted. Purpose without action is potential wasted. The magic happens when both align. When what you do each day reflects who you want to become. You don't need to do more. You need to do what matters. You don't need to move faster. You need to move truer. The goal isn't to fill every hour with activity, it's to fill your actions with meaning. Because life is not about how busy you are. It's about whether your busyness is building the life you actually want. At the heart of every stuck life lies one silent force: fear. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that whispers just enough to keep you where you are. It wears many disguises: logic, caution, timing, responsibility. But beneath every excuse is the same trembling truth: fear of change, fear of failure, fear of being seen, fear of losing control. People don't stay stuck because they lack ideas or talent. They stay stuck because fear convinces them it's safer not to try. It's easier to dream quietly than to risk disappointment loudly. It's easier to say a someday than to face the possibility of a not enough. So they build walls of routine and hide behind mistaken avoidance for safety. But what fear doesn't tell you is that safety has a cost, and that cost is your growth. Fear is clever. It doesn't always appear as panic or anxiety. Sometimes it shows up as comfort, disguised as logic. Now isn't the right time. Maybe later when things are more stable, I'm not ready yet. Those words sound reasonable, but they're poison dressed as patience. Waiting becomes a habit, and before long, years pass while fear quietly dictates the direction of your life. It's not failure that destroys most dreams, it's hesitation. Fear freezes movement. It creates endless preparation, endless overthinking, endless what-ifs. You start to analyze every possible outcome, and in doing so, you miss the one thing that truly matters: action. Because clarity never comes before movement, it comes because of it. The truth is, fear isn't a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you're on the edge of something meaningful. The greater the potential, the louder fear becomes. But courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move despite it. Every person who's ever built something extraordinary felt fear. They just refused to let it decide for them. What most people don't realize is that fear doesn't fade on its own. It only weakens when challenged. Each time you step toward what scares you, you reclaim a piece of your power. Each time you choose action over avoidance, you remind fear who's in control. And slowly, the voice that once seemed so loud becomes a distant echo. The real danger isn't in taking risks, it's in letting fear make your choices for you. Because fear will always choose comfort over courage, safety over significance, and routine over growth. It will convince you to shrink your dreams until they fit neatly inside your comfort zone. And once that happens, life stops expanding. So the next time fear whispers, "What if you fail?" answer back, "What if I don't?" Because the only thing worse than failing is never finding out what you were capable of becoming. That comfort is one of life's most seductive lies. It promises peace but delivers paralysis. It tells you that staying where you are will keep you safe. But in truth, it quietly drains your strength, dulls your instincts, and steals your hunger. Comfort doesn't announce its arrival. It creeps in gently, through small compromises, easy choices, and quiet justifications. One day you realize you've built a life that feels calm, but not alive. It's easy to fall in love with comfort because it feels good. It gives you predictability, stability, control. It allows you to breathe without tension, move without fear. But growth and comfort cannot coexist. The moment you choose comfort as your master, you trade the possibility of greatness for the illusion of security. You start to protect what you have instead of reaching for what you could become. The truth is, comfort is not peace. It's a slow form of decay. It lulls you into thinking everything is fine, even when your soul is starving. You start to avoid challenges, not because you can't handle them, but because they might disturb your sense of ease. You begin to settle for jobs that don't inspire you, relationships that drain you, routines that numb you. And you tell yourself it's a not so bad, as if mediocrity was something to be grateful for. But deep down, you know something's missing. That subtle restlessness, that quiet frustration, that feeling of being half awake. That's life calling you out of comfort. It's a signal that you're capable of more, that you were not designed to simply survive the familiar. The most alive moments you've ever felt were not comfortable ones. They were moments of challenge, when you took a risk, faced a fear, pushed beyond what you thought you could handle. Growth is uncomfortable because it requires you to let go of who you were to make space for who you're becoming. The most successful and fulfilled people are not those who avoid discomfort. They are those who seek it intentionally. They understand that discomfort is not a threat. It's a teacher. It sharpens your focus, strengthens your spirit, and expands your capacity. Every meaningful change in history, every act of innovation or transformation began with someone who was willing to be uncomfortable. Comfort feels safe now, but over time it becomes the cage that keeps you from living fully. You can decorate that cage, convince yourself it's freedom, but somewhere inside you'll always know it isn't. Because no matter how comfortable the cage, it's still a cage. So ask yourself, are you truly at peace or just comfortable? Because peace comes from growth, from movement, from alignment. Comfort comes from standing still, and standing still in a world that's constantly changing is the most dangerous thing you can do. You cannot escape a prison you don't realize you're in. Most people live unaware of the invisible walls that shape their lives. They wake up, follow routines, chase obligations, and call it normal, never stopping to ask why. Awareness is the first spark of freedom. It's the moment you turn on the light in a dark room and finally see what's been holding you back. Without awareness, even the most determined effort leads nowhere. Awareness is not comfort, it's confrontation. It forces you to look at yourself without excuses, without filters, without the stories you've used to justify your stagnation. It asks hard questions. What part of my life feels heavy? What patterns keep repeating? What am I pretending not to see? Most avoid those questions because they demand honesty, and honesty can be painful. But that pain is sacred. It's the beginning of awakening. When you finally become aware, you see that being stuck isn't random. It's a pattern of choices, beliefs, and fears repeating themselves. You see how easily you've mistaken comfort for happiness, how often you've chosen familiarity over fulfillment. You realize that you've built a life that may look fine on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. That moment of recognition can shake you. It can feel like your world is cracking open. But that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Because only when the old illusions fall apart can truth step forward. Awareness doesn't demand that you fix everything at once. It only asks you to see. Because what you can see, you can change. What you refuse to see controls you. The first act of power is to name the problem, not to judge it, not to run from it, but to understand it. The moment you name your limitations, they lose their grip. The chains you once thought were permanent begin to loosen. And yet awareness is not a one-time event, it's a lifelong practice. The mind is skilled at slipping back into comfort and finding distractions to avoid truth. That's why inspired self-awareness must be cultivated daily through reflection, honesty, and stillness. You must learn to pause before reacting, to observe before deciding, to listen before assuming. The more aware you become, the more control you reclaim. Awareness doesn't change your life instantly, it changes you. And when you change, everything else must follow. You begin to recognize what drains your energy and what feeds your spirit. You start noticing the gap between who you are and who you want to be. And in that noticing, something powerful awakens. A choice. Because the moment you see clearly, you can no longer pretend you don't. Awareness destroys denial. It breaks the illusion of I don't know. It gives you back the truth. And with truth comes responsibility. You can't go back to sleep once you've opened your eyes. So look closely, listen deeply. The answers you seek are not hidden in the world. They're waiting inside you, beneath the noise, beneath the excuses. Awareness is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your freedom. The greatest battle you'll ever fight is not against the world outside, but the voice inside. It's the quiet, persistent whisper that says, you can't. It tells you you're not ready, not worthy, not enough. These are not facts. They are beliefs. And beliefs, once accepted as truth, become invisible chains that shape every decision, every fear, every dream you dare to silence. Limiting beliefs are the roots of every stuck life. They don't appear overnight. They grow slowly, planted by experiences, by words you've heard, by failures you've endured, by people who didn't see your potential. Somewhere along the way, you begin to mistake those external voices for your own. And once a lie is repeated often enough, it starts to sound like truth. You begin to say things like, I'm just not that kind of person. And that's impossible for me. I don't have what it takes. You tell yourself these stories until they become part of your identity. And the mind, loyal to whatever it believes, starts building a life that fits those limits. You sabotage opportunities without realizing it, shrink your ambitions to avoid discomfort, and interpret every setback as proof that your fears were right. But here's the truth. Those beliefs were never yours to begin with. They were given to you, taught to you, imposed on you by a world that forgot its own power. You were not born with doubt. You learned that. You were not born to settle. You were conditioned to. The walls around you are not made of reality. They're made of repeated thoughts. And the moment you recognize that, everything changes. Because what the mind creates, the mind can also uncreate. You can rewrite your story. You can challenge the beliefs that built your cage. It starts by questioning them. Is this true? Who told me this? What if the opposite were possible? Each time you challenge a limiting belief, you weaken its hold. Each time you replace it with a thought of power, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. Transformation begins when you stop believing the lies you tell yourself. When you realize that the only thing standing between you and the life you want is a belief that says you can't have it. The moment you see that belief for what it is, a choice, not a fact, it loses its power. It's not the world that keeps you small. It's the story you keep telling yourself about why you can't be more. The world reflects your beliefs. Change them, and your world shifts with them. So ask yourself, what stories are you still living inside? What would happen if you stopped believing every thought that tried to limit you? Because the truth is, you were never broken. You were only bound by belief, and the key has always been in your hands. There comes a moment in every life when awareness is no longer enough, when understanding must turn into action. That moment is called decision. True change doesn't begin with luck, timing, or even clarity. It begins with a decision so strong that it leaves no space for retreat. Every transformation in history, personal or global, began the same way, with someone who finally said enough. A real decision is not made with words, it's made with resolve. It's the moment when something inside you shifts from "on should" to "I must." Most people spend years standing on the edge of change, waiting for the right sign, the right time, the right confidence. But those things never arrive first. Decision comes before clarity. Action creates confidence. Commitment builds courage. The truth is, indecision is its own prison. The longer you stay in the space between wanting and doing, the heavier it becomes. The mind starts spinning stories, filling the silence with doubt. What if I fail? What if I regret it? What if it's not the right move? But the real question is, what if staying the same is the greatest failure of all? Decisions shape destiny because they shape direction. Each one, no matter how small, carries the power to shift the course of a life. But most never realize this. They underestimate the quiet power of a single choice. Ojima. They think they need to see the entire path before taking the first step. Yet the truth is, you only need to see the next step clearly. Life reveals the road to those who walk it, not to those who wait. A powerful decision is not made in comfort. It's forged in the fire of frustration, when the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the fear of change. It's in that instant when you decide that you will no longer settle, no longer shrink, no longer apologize for wanting more, that life begins to bend in your favor. The universe responds to decisiveness, not hesitation. Every major breakthrough begins with a choice that feels impossible at first. The decision to start again, to let go, to try one more time, to walk away from what no longer fits, to believe in a version of yourself that no one else can see yet. That single moment of courage creates ripples that extend far beyond the present. You don't need all the answers to decide. You just need faith in your ability to figure it out along the way. Because waiting for certainty is how dreams die quietly in the dark. So decide. Decide that you will no longer be defined by your fears. Decide that your story isn't over. Decide that your life deserves your full commitment. Because in the end, your future doesn't change when you wish for it. It changes when you decide to. Once a decision is made, the next battle is motion. Because even after choosing change, many still wait for the perfect plan, the perfect time, the perfect certainty. But perfection is an illusion, and waiting is the